lovely day. I even shaved my legs. Traveling far out into a new headspace. Won't you tell me where it's at? Here we are, it's Aunt Tracy's place. Stay tuned to the end of the video for 30 seconds of straight up eye-f***ing with Aunt Tracy. You are in for a treat. This will be the first of a new type of video here at Aunt Tracy's place. Welcome to Lingerie Movie Reviews. Okay, hold your horses, we'll get to it, but let me tell you a little bit about how this video came about. First of all, you are subscribed to the channel, right? Could you do that for me now? Please. Don't forget to like the video. While this video is going to be canon in my Hedy Lamarr series, there won't be any biographical information. Think of this as a Lamarr sidebar, a Hedy addendum. So yeah, in my first video about Hedy Lamarr, I did a little review of the movie with the roles she's probably most well known for today. Her starring turn in the film Ecstasy. If you haven't seen the first video already, check it out. Well, in preparing for Hedy Lamarr Part 2, I decided I should do my homework and watch all of her movies. After all, we'll be getting heavily into her film career in this next video. So here's my process for reviewing the movies. First I watch the movie, then I slip into something a little more revealing. Then I watch the movie again, I point the camera at myself, and I talk about the movie. I'm trying to keep in mind that if I go super in-depth into every film, the video is going to be 45 hours long. So I was trying to make my reviews snappy and succinct and just hit all the major points and move on. I was tearing through it pretty good at first. I got through Algiers and Comrade X and Boomtown. Just moving right along, no problems. Then I got to her 1946 movie, The Strange Woman, and I got a little bit granular. I sat down in front of the camera and started my review of the film. I talked for 2.5 hours. The movie's only an hour and 40 minutes. Reenacting the movie would have taken less time. It was going to be impossible to limit my commentary on this film enough to fit into a concise segment in a Hedy Lamarr biographical video. So now it's its own thing. And now I bring you the lingerie movie review of The Strange Woman, based on a small part of this monster epic of historical fiction. 700 pages, not one mention of me. This book reads like an even more disjointed and less coherent Gone with the Wind. The Strange Woman is set in Bangor, Maine, during the height of the lumber boom. Hedy's character, Jenny Hager, is kind of a cross between Scarlett O'Hara and Sarah Michelle Gellar's character in Cruel Intentions. We're introduced to Jenny as a child, and she is simply delightful. Here she is peeling off her dress in front of a group of boys before launching one of them off the bridge and repeatedly dunking his head underwater. This child actress is the real-life daughter of the director, Edgar G. Ulmer. Watch her shove this little girl to the ground. Incredible form. Jenny's father is a brute of a man and the town drunk. So Jenny's growing up destitute, without a mother. Jenny's got a little blonde friend, Meg, who comes from a wealthy family. Meg pleads with her father, "Let Jenny come live with us in our big house and pay tuition so that Jenny and Meg can attend boarding school together." But the best Meg's dad is willing to offer... He won't pay for her education, but he will agree to take her in if he can benefit from the value of her labor. She can be his little servant girl. Jenny says, "You can take your exploitative capitalist offer and drown it in the river." I'll pull myself out of poverty. This would not be easy. You see, Jenny's growing up poor. She's not going to have access to a good education and probably won't be able to get a good paying job when she grows up. It's what Malcolm X identified as a very vicious cycle. Jenny knew the odds were against her, a woman, in 1824, but Jenny had a plan. She evaluated her potential assets and identified a strength that she could weaponize. Her feminine allure. She could leverage her immense beauty to defeat the patriarchy by turning it against itself and allow her to seize wealth and power in this town. But the only real path Jenny could see to finding security and luxury was to marry well. Watch her flirting with Isaiah, this rich old lumber baron. She shines him a cute little smile and he lets her grab a couple handfuls of shake from his stash. It's all harmless fun. Until Isaiah sees Jenny flirting with a man her own age. And, seeing an opportunity, Isaiah immediately runs blasting Jenny's business to her inebriated father. Jenny's father lies in wait for her to return home that night and physically abuses her with a non-consensual flogging. Ouch. 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 Jenny bites back, fleeing right to Isaiah's home in the comfort of his bed. It seems Isaiah's plan is nearing fruition, but just who is manipulating whom? So, and you'll love this. The eldermen of the town apparently get together to discuss what to do about this whole Jenny situation. And they all agree her father can't provide an appropriate home for her. What Jenny needs is a daddy. But which one of them will it be? Isaiah begrudgingly agrees to fulfill his heart's greatest lustful desire and marry Jenny. Even if she is young and gorgeous. I can't help but notice Jenny's conspicuous absence here, as her fate is determined. Of course, Jenny's May-December matrimony is the big town scandal. That poor uneducated gold digger. She has a lot of nerve showing her face here in church. She ought to be ashamed. This is where I really start to feel for Jenny. I understand her predicament. If you're someone who breaks with social norms, people are going to notice you. Your participation in public life gets scrutinized. You are very aware that you're a topic of conversation when you're not around. The need to have some control over your own narrative becomes imperative. Soon the preacher admonishes the wealthy patrons over the appalling living conditions of Bangor's working poor. Jenny seizes the opportunity to not only improve her public image, but demonstrate to the women of the town how to exercise power in their marriages. She stands up and pledges $1,000 on behalf of her and her husband, encouraging the other wives to follow suit. Jenny's motivations for charity are left somewhat ambiguous in the movie and are at the heart of the central question that we as an audience and Jenny herself must seek to answer. Why exactly does Jenny rise from the congregation and make that donation? Is Jenny a kind-hearted person, deserving of love, and merely determined to better her life under a system that she never devised? Or is she a devious Jezebel, hell-bent on ruining men's lives and corrupting their souls? To the most cynical viewpoint, it's all just brand management. Jenny's just trying to appear charitable, with a superficial gesture that requires no real sacrifice on her part. Sure, that donation, which is equal to $30,000 in today's money, will result in material benefits for the town's poorest residents. But this is essentially a PR move. It's the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Second option. Jenny feels solidarity with the working poor of the town. Having grown up in squalor and seeing now firsthand how the rich folk live, she's trying to Robin Hood some of that value produced by the laborers back to those who are most exploited. You'll see as we go along, Jenny never punches down in her battles. Her victims are typically amongst the privileged. She shows great empathy and selflessness for the less fortunate and marginalized. Jenny visits the sick families of the workers and offers this radical notion of employer-provided zero-deductible health care, believing that the wealthy could easily afford financing health care for all. Jenny notices many of the girls she grew up with are now sex workers, solicited by the lumberjacks that her husband employs, and Jenny identifies with these women, going so far as to intervene when a mob of angry Johns nearly tar and feather a woman she'd grown up with named Lena, after they unfairly accused Lena of stealing from them. Jenny nurses Lena to health and offers her childhood home, rent-free, as a place for Lena to live and conduct business. Jenny's pro-sex worker, anti-landlord, should I just come right out and say it? Based. Third option. This is what radical feminism looks like in the 1830s. A public demonstration of her power. Jenny showing the women of the congregation that they have the agency to effect change.
If the men of Bengal won't give to the church, the women will.
Jenny's bold donation inspires other women to I am Spartacus the household purse strings and make significant charitable contributions without first consulting with their owners. I mean husbands. We see Jenny giving empowering advice to women throughout the film. When Meg confides in Jenny that she wishes her handsome young boo would marry her, but that he is reluctant to propose because of his precarious finances, Jenny says, "Why don't you make him marry you?" Meg says, "My man don't think that way." And Jenny says,
I wouldn't give him a chance to think.
Now, if I mention the fact that Isaiah has a son named Ephraim who's Jenny's age, and Ephraim and Jenny have history. You remember Ephraim, right? From earlier in the picture? Jenny and Ephraim played together as children. Jenny and Ephraim became awfully cozy as adolescents. Their budding passion was a threat to Isaiah's hopes to acquire Jenny for himself. So, Isaiah sent Ephraim off to college as a way to keep the youngsters apart. However, since getting married to Isaiah, Jenny's been sending letters to Ephraim, telling him how much her father misses him and how he's desperately needed back in Bangor, Maine. Jenny teases and toys with Ephraim, taking him to the very precipice of his wildest Pornhub stepmom video fantasies becoming reality, and then pulling it away like a Charlie Brown football. Somehow, Ephraim gets in his head that, were his father out of the picture, he and Jenny could be together. And right on cue, the old fella succumbs to classic movie disease and falls into a fever. It seems as though her Isaiah-Ephraim redundancy contingent is paying dividends. Jenny steadfastly stays by her husband's bedside, refusing to take a break for rest or even meals. But when Isaiah shows signs of recovery, Jenny understandably reacts with complicated emotions. Jenny abandons the subtle approach for something a bit more sinister. She takes her vamping up a notch, all the way to 11. Look at her coyly playing with Ephraim's hair. Pro move. She needs a big, strong, brave man to take control of their destiny by doing exactly what she tells him to do, involving a little scheme that she's cooked up. She even tosses in a bit of blackmail for good measure, threatening to tell Isaiah that she and Ephraim are having an affair. Ephraim is supposed to join Isaiah on a little trip up the mountain to confront some lumber pirates, which, if Lumber Pirates isn't the next big hit reality TV program on A&E, I'm cutting the cord with my cable provider. Jenny makes it clear she wants Ephraim to come on down the mountain alone when he comes.
I want you to return alone.
When he comes. It quickly becomes apparent during their expedition that college boy Ephraim just ain't cut out for the rough and tumble life of a lumberjack. For one thing, he's terrified by water. He has PTSD involving water for some reason. So when the canoeing party approaches rapids, Ephraim goes full panic mode, standing up and tipping them over. Isaiah clings to a flotation device. But Ephraim slap fights him for it, and the old fart drowns in the river, presumably weighed down by his coin purse. Ephraim is a pitiable sight when he returns to Jenny alone as she demanded. But when he meekly attempts to enter the house and crawl into bed, Jenny blocks his entrance. "You can't come in this house, you wretched coward."
You killed your father.
Boom! Yes! I know I shouldn't condone treachery or manipulation or conspiracy to commit murder, but damn, Jenny just keeps putting up the W's. She got the house, she got the business, she's the sole heir to Isaiah's fortune now that Ephraim's out of the way, and it's not as though her victims are all that sympathetic. Isaiah was a lecherous old skinflint with a Machiavellian scheme to obtain a trophy wife. Ephraim was a lukewarm lover who abandoned Jenny to her abusive father, while he partied it up in Europe with sorority girls on his daddy's dime. I'm feeling shades of Angela Baker in Sleepaway Camp here, where I think the intent of the movie is to make her into a monster, but I just keep finding myself rooting for her. Like watching Cassie serve up revenge in the first hour and a half of Promising Young Woman. I get a vicarious thrill seeing her get away with it over and over, and I wonder, where's the line? When does the movie draw the line and start punishing Jenny?
Hollywood is full of depictions of schemers and plotters who lift themselves above their station they were born into through less than straightforward means. And inevitably, in American cinema, we see those characters get punished for their attempt to subvert the system. Sure, through most of the movie, we may see those characters living large, walking on sunshine, spending lavishly on luxury, and just effortlessly beating the system. But in the end, their best laid plans lead to ruin.
And the only reward for their subversion is death.
Or isolation, or imprisonment.
Historically, American films want us to know that the only path to success is by buckling down, pulling yourself up by your shoe leather, and eating your bootstraps. And if you choose any other path, the universe will destroy you. Thus far, Jenny seems immune to movie karma.
She's become Baroness of the town's booming lumber concern, and an all-around shot caller.
You should see her in a crowd.
Her first order of business is to give a big promotion to Meg's boyfriend John, so they can finally afford to get married. And Jenny sees Meg together with John, portrayed by actor George Sanders,
the third husband of Zsa Zsa Gabor, and someone you may recognize from his Oscar-winning turn as the Heavy in All About Eve.
But when Jenny sees Meg and John together,
that is when the coveting begins. Jenny longs for what Meg seems to have.
A partner that will love and accept her for who she is, not merely desire her for her beauty.
Jenny's lonely. She's been maneuvering people instead of bonding with them. She provides the world with an inauthentic image of herself and, consequently, she doesn't have a genuine connection to anyone. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem, it's me. All of her victories, all her plotting and strategizing, all the things she's really great at. She can't share that with anyone. Who would choose to be with someone like her if they truly knew what she was capable of? So maybe John's promotion wasn't entirely a selfless act. Why, she'd keep him so busy, he'd barely have any time for Meg at all.
Ephraim, now a drunken shell of a man, has been running his mouth off about Jenny all over town, calling her every name in the book.
A conniving black widow, a manipulative bitch, a calculating little see you next Tuesday. Jenny asked John, "Can you pay Ephraim a little visit and convince him to keep my pretty name out of his mouth?"
But John finds Ephraim's narrative to be compelling and believable. He demands that Jenny accompany him to confront Ephraim face to face, in order to determine just who's telling the truth. When they return to the cabin,
Ephraim ain't telling no tales. He's hanging from the rafters. And Jenny says, right in front of John,
I did that.
Jenny.
I killed him. Don't say I didn't do it.
"Do you think Jenny looks horrified to see the result of her duplicitous machinations? Or does she look fascinated? Awestruck even?"
looking at her face, I think of that passage in Marianne Williamson's book, A Return to Love. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure.
Jenny just saw the evidence of the extreme breadth of her power. While John cuts down the corpse, lightning, or maybe it was Jenny, scares away the horses, and they are forced to spend a dark and stormy night together in the cabin. Those darn horses.
Always running off at the most inopportune times. But John is a virtuous man, completely devoted to Meg. Certainly he has the willpower, the fortitude, and the conviction to resist Jenny's powers of seduction and, oh my word.
You know how Jenny and I have been conflicted about the Jekyll and Hyde nature of her character? I've been wondering, does the movie think Jenny's evil? Is the movie going to make a moral judgment on Jenny's behavior? The movie gives us our answer here in melodramatic fashion. Subtle. But if the movie is trying to prevent Jenny from getting what she's after, it certainly hasn't impeded her thus far. John falls for her, professes his love for her. Now he just has that unpleasant task of breaking it off with Meg. Certainly this is going to break Meg's heart, but at least John can show the decency of telling her himself. Jenny gets there ahead of him, so she can be the one to say, boom, I got your boyfriend. The psychological abuse that Jenny puts Meg through here is staggering. Jenny says,
I should have realized that when he said he loved me, he must have said the same thing to you just the day before. No, he didn't. He never said those words to me.
just twist that knife a little deeper. John doesn't understand how Jenny could be so cruel. When John confronts Jenny, she's uncharacteristically forthright about her motivations. She wouldn't dare leave Meg and John alone together, lest her power over John subside, and John and Meg might end up getting back together. Jenny just can't have that. Now will John become enraged, hearing Jenny's self-serving explanation? I guess not. So Jenny and John, they're married now. Wedded bliss.
Say, I love you.
Okay, get out those notebooks. Jenny is about to give a master class in manipulation. John mentions his brothers, men he's likely to feel some sibling rivalry with. Jenny asks, do they all have pretty wives? Prettier than me? Suddenly it's a competition. Who has the prettiest wife?
Say,
Appeal to vanity.
I married the loveliest of them all.
say,
Isolation.
we don't need anyone else, ever.
Fostering codependence.
Keep me happy, darling.
I give that to you, John.
Say,
You need me.
I married the loveliest of them all.
Still, in their most tender moments, they talk of their future together. John wants to have a big family with lots of children. So here's where the movie serves up the favored punishment for the flagrant femme fatale. She visits her doctor and... shocking development here. Dun 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 dun! She's incapable of bearing children. Shocking development. Now the movie lays it on.
Jenny and John attend a church revival with a sermon devoted to
Hey, it's the name of the movie.
the fire and brimstone breathing preacher's vitriol seems directed deliberately and squarely on Jenny, which...
I wonder what that's like. The preacher really rattles Jenny's cage, though, exposing her greatest internal conflict. The universal desire to be seen as a good person versus her innate ingenuity and guile, which, thus far, have allowed her to survive. No, wait, to thrive in this world of ours. So her and John go home and get into this huge fight. This, to me, is the true climax of our movie. It's the moment Jenny's conflict gets resolved, addressed, revealed. I don't know. It's where all the shit hits the fan blades. Jenny is already upset and furious about the preacher's contempt. She thinks that preacher is a sanctimonious, pious, horrible little ignoramus. But John thought he knew what the preacher was getting at.
He wasn't talking to you. He was talking to people like Lena.
Remember Lena, the sex worker Jenny rescued from that violent mob and set up with permanent housing?
Well, John is certain that Lena is exactly the type of woman the preacher was condemning.
I've come to a decision. We're going to put Lena out of your house.
no.
John demands that Jenny evict Lena immediately.
I don't care what she meant to you when you were a child. I'm talking about what she is now. I don't want you to be connected with her.
After all, he can't have his wife connected to a woman who uses her sexuality for financial benefit.
I don't want her sins on your hands.
Why, those women are demonic and trashy.
In what way is she different from us? Except that she's more honest.
She goes out of your house tomorrow.
In one fell swoop, John dismisses the most generous and selfless act that Jenny's ever engaged in. And he denigrates all her greatest personal achievements. Are you f***ing kidding me, John?
You good, righteous man. You hypocrite.
Who do you think you are? Who do you think you married? And you said you loved me. But you stand there, bashing everything that makes me who I am. Can't you be proud of me? Can't you be proud of all the things that I've accomplished? I was your boss, John. I ran a lumber empire. Me, a woman in the early 19th century. I gave you that big promotion.
While you live in this house with me.
This big house, I built this for you, John, for us. And you don't value any of it.
Do you know what went on in this room before Ephraim killed his father?
Jenny.
All you want is a demure housewife who's pretty enough to impress your brothers and fertile enough to impress your mother.
Sit down, John, and I'll show you how I made him kill his father. Sit down and I'll kiss you the way I kissed him.
You knew who I was when we got married, John. You knew I was determined and cunning and calculating, and you still proposed to me. You said you loved me, but you knew. You knew all along.
Why do you look at me like that? Why do you pretend everything he told you was true and you knew it?
You knew I manipulated Ephraim to kill his father.
You knew it!
That look right there, that look of fear mixed with realization. Of course John knew. He knew all along and was living in denial. He'd rather live his whole life pretending he didn't know. Pretending it wasn't true. Pretending he's in love with Jenny. But he's not. And Jenny knows it. She knows he doesn't love her. That he never really loved her. Because you can't manipulate someone into loving you. It's either real or... So that's pretty much the end of the story. The movie continues on punishing Jenny for her feminine misdeeds.
John goes back to making her bonnet. Jenny tries to run over them with a team of horses, but her buggy hits a rock and flips over. John rushes to her side, but Jenny's injuries are fatal. She dies, looking terrified of eternity.
And then she pops up out of the bathtub and they kill her again. Just in case we didn't get the message the first time.
There's hell opening under our feet.
So there's your lingerie movie review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and click the little bell so you know when the next video is coming out. Gender-affirming healthcare saves lives. We'll see you next time. Based on a small part of this monster of historical epic fiction. And yes, Taylor, it is exhausting.